So, looks like Carolyn's gonna leave. Of course, I'll explain all this and I'll explain what happened, or what might happen, or I don't know. But of course, this is a vlog. In order to be a vlogger, you gotta do vloggy things. Now, mostly speaking, this video is going to be about Carolyn leaving. So as you know, we were looking for a travel trailer, camper. We was looking for something small, 14-footer or so. And we were going to park it down here by the woods, and it was going to be Carolyn's little private room where she could do prayer things and just different things she wanted to do, and possibly cooking, storage, whatever it is she wanted. But primarily what we were going to use it for is for visitors. My dad was thinking about coming up last spring. Turned out it couldn't, but we didn't know what to do with him because there was just not enough room in a tiny house. So I thought, well, we'll just put him in a hotel room. Well, that spawned ideas, and then we thought about her kids coming down and visiting, my kids coming down and visiting. So we're just trying to figure out what we could do to accommodate visitors. Of course, we don't get many visitors. We're pretty reclusive. But that being said, Carolyn wanted to have a space of her own. Well, then, as you know, Carolyn's son needed a place to stay, and we went out and bought a camper, and it's sitting right here. This thing's not roadworthy, and we paid a couple of $100 more than what I would like to have paid for it. I was looking for a specific price range for 14-foot trailers, but I'm telling you, there was nothing out there. As a matter of fact, the smaller they got, the pricier they got. Well, a guy not too far from us, and I mean literally not too far from us, pretty close, walking distance actually, was selling this one. He said he'd bring it over for us, and I was going to talk him down a little bit, down to the $200 that I wanted to knock off of it. But then I got to thinking he's going to deliver it for us, and so I gave him the full amount. Of course, I wanted to park it further up the hill, but that didn't work out. Truck got stuck. No big deal. I mean, I'm just glad he got it over here, because our little 4-cylinder, I don't think could have gotten it here. We got it all leveled up and got it where at least Carolyn's son could come into it. We got electric hooked up to it, but not a lot. We had modified sine wave, I believe, hooked up to it. Well, then it wasn't too much longer. He wanted to get a TV hooked up into it, so we hooked him up to the pure sine wave inverter, and we took the modified. Well, then we decided that we were going to buy a bigger pure sine wave inverter so he could run his TV and an air conditioner on it. Well, when we got it here, I realized it was going to take amperage even when it wasn't in use. 2 amps to be specific. All inverters take amperage. But the 1,000-watt inverter, I don't even notice how much amperage it's using. It hardly uses any. But the 2,000, it was using 2 amps. And you figure 2 amps an hour over a 24-hour period is basically one battery consumption. We have 100-amp lead-acid batteries. Well, when you look at lead acid, they falsely advertise it. You can only use half of it. So that means you can only use 50 amps out of it. Well, if I'm using 48 amps in 24-hour period, that's one battery dedicated to just keeping the inverter turned on. So we looked at how much power he was using for his TV and our freezer, and both were taking about 10 amps, which that little 1,000-watt inverter could handle very well. So we went ahead and plugged both of our houses, camper and the house, into that one inverter. So between the two houses, we get 1,000 watts. But if he wants to run an air conditioner, then I unplug his camper from the 1,000-watt and I put it into the 2,000-watt, because when we run the air conditioner, we got sun blaring and we also have the generator running. So we got plenty of power to deal with those 2 amps. It's not like I need to worry about depleting the battery. Biggest problem is depleting batteries overnight. We got to have batteries for the freezer. So I've been trying to figure out how to do all this. Now in yesterday's video I was telling you, and I'll put a link or an up next box at the end of this video to that video so you can watch it. But originally I wanted to give him the old 2,000-watt inverter generator, but as you know, that thing died, and I've been trying to figure out how to fix it. Been working on it. I'm going to continue to work on it, but in the meantime it just doesn't run, so I couldn't give it to him. But I did buy a replacement because we were using it. We bought this little Power Smart. It doesn't have as much power. It's 1,500 watts and it runs the battery chargers. That's what I bought it for. I made the conscious decision and acknowledged that I probably wouldn't be able to use this for anything other than the battery charger. Now, we also have that 2500 watt inverter generator. That's a dual fuel. But I don't want to run it a lot because I like for it to last a long time because it's dual fuel. And we also run the well with it. Of course, I could run the well off the solar panels. A few days ago, I guess a couple days ago, it got hot out. And Carolyn decided she wanted to put the air conditioner in the camper so her son could have cooler temperatures in there. Now, I recognized that camper was going to get hotter than the tiny house. The camper sitting out in direct sunlight. The tiny house is under trees. When we were staying in this truck camper, when we were building the tiny house, this little truck camper got ferociously hot. It was hot in there. So we put the air conditioner in there when we were living in the truck camper. Now, at the time, I was still trying to work out all the bugs that we had with the solar panels. One of the problems we have with the solar panels is the hotter it gets outside, the less energy solar panels produce. That's just a given. We know that. There's a mathematical calculation. I don't know what the mathematical calculation is, but after 78 degrees, you start to lose voltage on your, well, when you're pulling a lot of amperage like the air conditioner, you need that voltage. But of course we didn't get it. I've learned a lot since then, and maybe I was wrong back then. I don't know. What I do know is I'm having a lot more success with it now. So on that first day, it was partly cloudy, so I started the generator, and I've got two battery chargers. One battery charger I put at 25 amps. The other battery charger I put at 10 amps. So between the two battery chargers hooked up to my series of 8 batteries, I was getting 35 amps out of the two battery chargers. This little generator ran those two battery chargers at 35 amps. Great, it ran well. And then I had the solar panels charging, and it was a partly cloudy day. So, you know, occasionally I would get 22 amps out of it, and then it dropped down to 12. But it didn't matter because the battery chargers were keeping up with the air conditioner just fine. It was great. So I was very proud that I figured out a solution where he could use this generator because the old one died, and we could use it at the same time and not deplete the battery, so we got plenty of batteries to run the freezer at nighttime on cloudy days, just like this one. This one we would have to run the generator. Now yesterday, it got hot again, and it was completely sunny. About, I don't know, 2:30-ish, Carolyn wanted to turn on the air conditioner for him. He isn't asking to turn on the air conditioner. He just won't ask. So I came down here and I looked at what we were doing with the solar panels and all that. Now that morning, I spent all morning making sure that all the solar panels were working. The way I got it wired up, I don't understand what the deal is. I've tried all kinds of different things, but occasionally the wires get corroded sitting out here in the elements. They get, not corroded, that's the wrong word. The copper turns dark. So occasionally I have to come down here and I have to clean those copper wires. I just take a little greenie and I clean them. And then I can hook them back up and they work fine. I've put all kinds of silicones and different things on it. I've had mechanics tell me what to use, and I've used that stuff. I can't remember all the stuff I've used, but I used it all. And it just doesn't help. So about once a year I come down here and I make sure all the connections are nice and clean and that all the solar panels are producing the amps they're supposed to. Well, now, the solar panels have gotten some cracks in them and different things, so they're not running quite as efficiently as they used to. I have 1,000 watts worth of solar panels, but I may only be producing 800 watts. Regardless, I came down here and cleaned them all up, and boy, I tell you, that everything was working great. I turned on the 2,000 watt inverter, and I ran a Sawzall and a circular saw at the same time, and that was probably 1,300 watts that I was running, so I was getting close to maxing out the 2,000 watt inverter, and the solar panels were keeping up just fine. But the thing I noticed is the charge controller. So a charge controller is the thing that regulates the amount of electricity that you're putting from the solar panels into the battery. That way you don't overcharge the batteries. So like a battery charger, when you charge a battery on your car, you'll notice over time the amperage will drop on the battery charger, but the voltage will increase. Well, the charge controller does the same thing. In the morning, you'll have 20 or 30 amps pumping into there trying to charge all the batteries up, but the voltage is real low. It'll be at 12.3 volts or something like that. But at noontime, you'll be at 14.4 volts and 3 amps, because you just don't need a lot of amps to charge batteries anymore. They're basically charged. So it starts to shut down. Now, what's nice about charge controllers is if you have a big heavy load on your inverter, the charge controller tries to regulate the amount of energy coming into the batteries. So when whatever it is the heavy load is shuts off, you don't surge the system. Imagine you're running a big air conditioner and it's just pulling all kinds of energy, and then it shuts off and the solar panels are still throwing all that energy into the batteries, and it gets up above 14.4 volts. Well, that'll burn up your batteries. Anything above about 14.4 volts will start to burn up your batteries. And then the inverter says, hey, that's too much power, and shuts off. It can't handle anything over, I think, 14.6. I think the inverter shuts off at 14.6. So the other day, it was beautifully sunny outside. I mean, just absolutely amazingly sunny. And I run the air conditioner without the generator, just the solar panels. And my voltage dropped to 13. So it was at 14.4 and it dropped down to 13.1. The charge controller says 30 amps. I'm thinking I should be getting more amps because I need to get it back up to 14.4 volts. But it's only doing 30 amps and it's holding steady at 13.1 volts. What it means is it wasn't charging the batteries. It wasn't getting back up to full power. And I'm watching it. Well, then I decided, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna turn that saw on and see what happens. So now I'm pulling even more amperage. The voltage dropped again on the charge controller down to 12.4. And then I saw the amperage on the charge controller go up. And it got my voltage back up to 13.1. So what I'm seeing is, and I didn't realize the first year I ran the air conditioner, this is what's happening, is the charge controller saying, as soon as that air conditioner shuts off, you're going to overload your system. So I'm not going to pretend to charge your batteries. I'm going to hold it right here at 13.1. That way, when the air conditioner shuts off, I can sense it, the charge controller can sense it, and have time to shut down the power coming from the solar panels. So I learned something. This was very interesting to me. I hope it makes some sense. So even though my solar panels can produce, let's say, 50 amps, it's only allowing 30 to come in because that's all it needs, even though the batteries say it's not charged at 13.1. I just found it interesting, and I learned something. So now he's got air conditioning, and on sunny days, doesn't even need the generator. The solar panels can run the freezer and the air conditioner all by itself, and his TV. So I'm very excited about how all this is working out. So I got a comment the other day that says, I don't know what Carolyn is going to do now that you put the air conditioner into her son's camper. What are you guys going to do for an air conditioner? Well, the only time we've ever had an air conditioner was in the truck camper. The entire time we've been in the house, which is now, this is the 3rd summer, we've not had an air conditioner. And every year I have to address this. People do not need an air conditioner. A fan is all you need. And people just cannot seem to grasp this idea. Before I think the 1920s, nobody had an air conditioner. And I see movies of people living in the 20s, of course, prior to 20s. And they didn't have air conditioners down in Mississippi and Florida and Louisiana. People lived there. Well, you can't live there now. It's too hot. Well, what did it get hotter in the last 100 years down in Louisiana? I know somebody's going to say, yeah, it got hotter, 1 degree. It's always been hot down there. And you got those Southern Bells. They were fanning themselves. Now, I do better in the heat than Carolyn does. That's admittedly, I've said that many times, and she does better in the winter than I do. Now, that being said, since we've lived here, we've gotten accustomed to the temperatures a lot better than we used to. This entire winter, I didn't really wear my coat too terribly much. I just put a sweatshirt on and I was able to come out and do my chores and go back inside. If I stayed out too long, then of course I get a coat. But I've gotten a lot tougher in the winter, and she's gotten a lot better in the summer. But she sits in front of a fan, a little battery operated, well, it's a 12-volt fan, but it also can plug in. It's a DC thing, but regardless, it's a fan. It's 12 inches. It's not huge, but it cools the house down pretty good. And of course, we're underneath the trees, so we get plenty of shade. But that commenter said that if I don't get her air conditioning, she is going to advocate that Carolyn move in to the camper with her son. I don't even understand this. Why are these people advocating what Carolyn wants to do in life? Carolyn is a grown woman, 61 years old. She's made a lot of good decisions in her life. She's done fine. She's still alive. She's still functioning. Her brain is completely coherent. Why does people think they're going to tell a 61-year-old woman where she's going to live or how she's going to live or what she needs in life? Carolyn is very miserly. She can squeeze a penny until blood comes out of it. She's not going to go wanting an air conditioner or more solar panels or running the generator or any of that stuff. Because unlike days like this, he's going to have to run the generator. So if we had an air conditioner, then we would have to run another generator and more gas. People just waste money. They don't even consider, maybe I can shut off the air conditioner. Maybe I could make it work. Run a fan. How can I do that? But instead, oh, the economy is in such bad shape. The energy prices are going up. My electric bill's through the roof. Well, then do something about it. Carolyn did, and she's loving it. So if you click this up next box to take that video where I was talking about those generators and different things, so if I can inspire you to shut it off so you can live your dreams. Thanks for watching.